every city dweller knows that the best way to experience a city is on foot. The advantage of walking is that you improvise. Walkers can take shortcuts, and sometimes these unplanned trails leave a trace. Informal channels made when people cut corners, leaving earth-brown lines through patches of green. Some people call these footfall-formed passages desire paths. According to the poets Paul Farley and Michael Simmons Roberts, desire paths are proof of human unpredictability. But humans aren't the only species that make their own way through the urban landscape. A host of other creatures are learning to make our cities their home. In some cases, they adapt their bodies and behaviours to do so. Snails in the Netherlands have lighter shells to cope with warmer urban temperatures. Orb-weaving spiders in Australia weave tighter webs to compensate for a lack of insects. And many birds across the UK have adapted the shape and size of their beaks to forage from garden bird feeders. Other creatures, however, are changing the urban environment to suit their needs. We are standing outside McEwan Hall. McEwan Hall is where students from the University of Edinburgh have their graduation ceremonies. It's a really grand, imposing building. It looks a bit like a refugee from the Italian Renaissance. It's built in this warm sandstone. It's got this great big dome on top and all these niches all the way around it for statues and carved stonework. It's extremely grand and imposing. To students of the university, it's somewhere that's really important to them. It's where they will go for their graduation. It'll be a place of celebration. And in fact, on the square opposite us, we've got students going to lectures. Often there are skateboarders there who are kind of using the steps, kind of improvising ramps and so on. All of city life is around us. And this building sits in the middle of it as this beautiful, grand place of celebration. But if you're a bird, you would look at this and you'd see something very different. They'd see a space to roost. If you were a bird of prey, it would be a place to sort of perch and to look out for your next kill. And of course, our cities are not just populated by us, they're populated by a whole host of wildlife. And for that wildlife, the different environments of our cities represent a whole host of different kinds of landscape. Our tall buildings are like cliff faces. Canals and culverts are like rivers. Our cellars are like caves. So a bird might look at this building and see the possibility of somewhere to rest, somewhere to nest, or somewhere to sort of perch and look out for food. But on many of the ledges around here, we've got these really aggressive, hostile, painful looking spikes. And these are quite a familiar part of the urban fabric. They're anti-bird spikes. They're designed to stop birds from perching and then fouling the outside of buildings. They're a kind of hostile architecture for animals, really. But the birds seem to have found a way nonetheless of making use of them. Carrion crows in Rotterdam and magpies in Glasgow have been observed foraging these anti-bird spikes and using them to build nests. They're using them as nesting material, which is really quite extraordinary when you consider they look a lot like barbed wire. And when you see pictures of these nests, they look like angry balls of barbed wire with just a few twigs thrown in, and yet the birds nest in them contentedly. It's really quite extraordinary. It's not entirely clear why they're using this material. It could be just that it's a convenient alternative to twigs. There are a lot of them in city environments, so they're quite available, quite easy to kind of pull off. Or it might be that they afford a kind of protection. They sort of, they perform the same function, but instead of keeping birds away from buildings, they keep other birds, predators perhaps, away from nests. But what's striking about this for me is that what we see is birds improvising a new use for a material that's actually designed to keep them away. I'm interested in the way that animals' talent for improvisation, talent for kind of finding new uses in things we've made, might inspire us to think again about our urban environments, to reimagine them, reimagine new uses for things that we might waste, things that we might throw away, and in doing so create city environments that are full of possibility and full of opportunities for all living things to thrive in them. Biology doesn't plan, it improvises. The term for this in evolutionary science is exaptation. Archaeopteryx, one of the first dinosaurs to have feathers, could only fly very short distances. This is because, in fact, feathers first evolved to keep Archaeopteryx warm. Over time, feathers adapted to insulate were put to a wholly new use, exapted to allow for flight. Exaptation places improvisation at the heart of evolution. Human impacts on the planet are now so great through climate change, deforestation, pollution, that just one single species, us, is the driving force, the single most potent force of evolution on the planet. And this has supercharged species change around the world. We see everything from songbirds to butterflies adapting to survive a warmer, more toxic world. But nature's genius has always been for change. And just as some creatures are learning to remake urban landscapes for their own purposes, their talent for improvisation could help us reimagine city life. As I discovered when I visited the Waste House, a house in Brighton made entirely from things that we usually throw away.